Hello! In this episode of Coolgrad videos, we're going to talk about some verbal content which is very useful for exams such as GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, etc. We're going to talk about pairs and sets of confusing words in the English language. So there are all these confusing words. Some of them they are pronounced very similar to each other. Some of them are spelled very similar to each other, and they cause a lot of confusion to a lot of people, sometimes resulting in a lot of humorous errors. So I have a compilation of more than 100 pairs of confusing words, and with examples and meanings and illustrations, I'm going to talk about the differences in meanings of these words. I think this is a very important video for those of you who are preparing for your GRE and GMAT exams, because a lot of people get confused between these words and make very costly mistakes. Please pay attention and learn to distinguish these pairs of words. So the first pair of confusing words, awesome and awful. So awesome means amazing, wonderful, awesome. So awful means miserable, bad and horrible. A lot of people don't know the difference. I've seen some of my friends in India saying, hey, that was an awful movie, awful, when they meant to say awesome. So remember, awesome is good and awful is bad, okay? So how do we use these in sentences? Awesome. Example, Picasso's paintings are awesome. The paintings are wonderful. And awful, her awful voice gave me a headache. Awful means something really bad. So please remember to distinguish these two terms. The next set of confusing words is access and assess. So they're pronounced slightly differently. Access with the two C's and assess with the two S's. So access means to obtain information, to gain information, or to gain entry into some place. To access means to obtain. Like you gain access into a building. So access to the office. When they give you the keys, you gain access to the house. So for example, hackers accessed my password illegally. They somehow got access to my password. Access means information or the right to it. The company has restricted access to the gym to only full-time employees. That means only a subset of people, only the full-time employees have access to the gym. Nobody else can go to the gym. So access means to obtain something, like the right to entry or the right to information. Assess is to measure the quality or performance of something. For example, when you're assessing the quality of an object that you're going to purchase in a shop, you're buying some new clothes, you assess them. Is this of good quality cloth? Is this stitched properly? Does it fit me? Is it worth the price? You do all this assessment. So the noun form of assess is assessment. So an employee in a company will be assessed periodically for his performance. So that's performance assessment. So when somebody gives you an exam, like a GRE or a GMAT or any exam, they're assessing your verbal ability and your quantitative ability. So for example, the interviewers assess the candidate's communication skills by asking him many tricky questions. So remember, access means to enter or obtain something. Assess means to test, to measure the quality of something. So next pair of confusing words are ballad and ballot. So a ballad with AD at the end is different from ballot with the OT at the end. They're very, very different things. A ballad is any light, simple song, especially one of sentimental or romantic character. So the poet composed a romantic ballad about the brave king and the beautiful queen. So a ballad is a poem, especially something that's romantic. A ballot is a slip or a sheet of paper, a cardboard or the like, on which a voter marks his or her vote. So when you go to the elections, you cast your vote on the ballot paper. So they give you a sheet of paper with all the candidates' name and you take the person who you want to vote for. That's a ballot. So in the ancient days, the Greeks would have all these unwanted pieces of pottery on which they would cast their vote to determine who needs to get, banished from the kingdom. So that's how it came across. That's how they got the name ballot. Ballot means ancient Greek pottery. But just remember to distinguish these two words, ballad and ballot. Ballad is a kind of romantic poem, and ballot is a sheet of paper or something on which you vote in the elections. The next set of words is accession and ascension. So accession is the act of becoming the ruler of a country, becoming part of an international organization. So Shah Jahan ascended the throne of Delhi. So an accession is like when you become the ruler of a country. So say President Obama's accession to the government of the United States was watched by people all over the world. That's accession. Ascension is the act of going to heaven. It's like when some great person dies, they say he is liberated, he went straight to heaven, and the rest of them are usually reborn. So, for example, Mother Teresa was conferred with sainthood after her ascension. So, it can refer to any person who is dying, like say, when you talk about somebody's death, we talk about his ascension. Means he ascended the next phase of life, that is afterlife. So remember, accession is very different from ascension. And if you meant to say somebody, we are talking about somebody's accession, that is say Shah Jahan's accession to the throne, and instead you say ascension, you're talking about his death. So these are very different things. Accession means becoming the ruler of a country or something, and ascension is the act of going to heaven. So they're two very different things. A pulsar and a quasar. So a pulsar stands for pulsating star in astronomy, generally believed to be a rapidly rotating neutron star that emits focused light beams. So it's a rapidly rotating neutron star, a pulsar, which emits pulses of, like light beams. So pulsars get their names because of the way their emissions appear to be pulsating out into space. That's very different from a quasar. A quasar stands for quasi-stellar radio source. Is in fact a distant galaxy with a fluctuating blaze of light and other radiations coming from its central regions. So there's a fluctuating blade of light that comes. It's not necessarily focused or pulsating. So remember, pulsar, focused pulsating light. Quasar, kind of fluctuating blaze of light. So a quasar is a compact, extremely bright celestial object whose power output can be hundreds to several thousand times that of the entire Milky Way galaxy. So in some context, if you need to distinguish between a pulsar and a quasar, remember, pulsar emits pulsated, focused beams of light, and it's a rapidly rotating neutron star. But a quasar emits fluctuating blaze of light. It can also be very bright, though. So next two pairs of words are affection and affectation. So affection is the feeling of love. So when you have affection towards somebody, you love that person. She wondered if John was truly worthy of her affection. Affection is love. Affectation is artificial behavior. It's like when you put on an act, a drama. So even if you're having a really bad day, sometimes if you go to an interview, you have to, pretend that you're enthusiastic and bright and excited. So that's a kind of an affectation, the behavior that you put on. And sometimes even if you have problems at home, whatever, if you're like anchoring a show on TV, you have to put on a smile and talk. So that's a kind of an affectation. It's artificial behavior. So let's take an example of how to use affectation in a sentence. Her affectation to portray herself as rich and classy was foiled by her cheap, ill-fashioned outfit. So it talks about some lady who was trying to portray herself as a very rich and classy woman due to her artificial behavior. But her cheap clothes and unfashionable outfit gave her away. People realized that she wasn't rich or classy. So affectation is artificial behavior. Alter and altar. So to alter with an E, the alter is to change or to make someone or something different. Like you submit your clothes for an alteration. The tailor altered her dress to make it looser. And an altar with an A is a special table where religious ceremonies are performed. So the bride and groom prayed at the altar for a long, happy married life. So in the church, there is an altar where you light a candle, you can pray, and so the bride and the groom prayed at the altar for a happy married life. So alter is different from altar. Refraction and diffraction. Refraction, the change of direction of a ray of light, sound, heat or the like in passing obliquely from one medium into another in which its wave velocity is different. So that is refraction. So when light passes from a medium of lower density to higher density or higher density to lower density, it bends. This bending is called refraction. Diffraction with a D over here, diffraction is very different. The phenomenon exhibited by wave fronts that passing the edge of an opaque body are modulated, thereby causing a redistribution of energy within the front. So when you pass light through a narrow slit, it spreads out, that is diffraction. Refraction is very different from diffraction. So when people go to interviews sometimes, like for a physics position or for a physics teacher position, high school teacher position or something, I've seen this happen. The interviewer asks about diffraction and they talk about refraction because most people know what refraction is. So let's take an example of how to use them in a sentence. The pencil looks bent when it is partly immersed in a glass of water due to refraction. When light passes through a narrow slit, it spreads out due to diffraction. So they are two different things. Anticipate and expect. So these are these words have similar meanings, but they have a slight subtle difference. Let's take a look. Anticipate is to be aware of something in advance. Means due to this set of criteria, all these set of events, you anticipate something to happen. Expect is to think or believe something will happen. Expect is more like when you expect something to happen without any, solid reasons for it happening. Anticipate is like when you have every reason to believe something is going to happen. So there's a subtle difference. We anticipate a lot of resentment from the employees who were fired yesterday, and therefore we appointed additional security at the office entrance. So if they fired a bunch of people the previous day, they're going to be angry, and based on historical empirical evidence, we know what do such people do. They try to come and throw stones at the office, they try to create a ruckus. So you anticipate trouble and you deploy security guards. For example, when there's elections, when there's religious festivals happening, the government deploys additional security because they anticipate problems. You can also anticipate a lot of success. You can anticipate, for example, you can anticipate rain. Based on the clouds and the forecast, we anticipate rain. So expect is to think or believe something will happen. We expect this venture to be highly profitable. There may not be so much of a solid base for an expectation. Sometimes we have great expectations and it leads to great disappointments, but when you anticipate something, you have more reason to believe it's going to happen. So there's a subtle difference between anticipate and expect, but they're used in a similar context. Annihile and annihile. So both words are nouns and they're both pronounced the same way. So annihile with A-I-S-L-E. Annihile is like a passageway, like in an aeroplane or a train, a passageway between rows of seats, shelves or objects that people need to move in between. An aisle is an island. So the air hostess struggled to walk with her food trays on a narrow aisle in the airplane. So the air hostess struggled to walk with her food trays on the narrow aisle. So A-I-S-L-E. The aisle is a passageway. And an isle, I-S-L-E, is an island. The Isle of Sri Lanka is a fertile, humid country. So Sri Lanka is an island country, we all know that. So instead of saying island, you say isle. They mean the same thing. The remodeled kitchen has a work aisle in the middle. So in the kitchen they have this table in the middle where you can chop vegetables and store some dishes underneath, and you can use it for a variety of things. That's the kitchen aisle. So remember, that's an island. So wherever it means like an island, it's I-S-L-E, aisle. And wherever it's a passageway, it's A-I-S-L-E, aisle. They're still pronounced the same way. Appraise and apprise. So appraise means to set a value on something such as a house or jewelry. So we do the appraisal. The noun form is appraisal. The verb is appraise. Her house in San Diego was appraised to be worth over $2 million. So who does the appraisal? Like a qualified real estate agent, or somebody who knows how to determine the value of property. Somebody appraised her house to be worth over $2 million. So you can say this antique jewelry was appraised to be worth $100,000. So apprise means to inform. Mary's neighbor apprised the police about her drug trafficking activities. So to apprise means to inform somebody. Appraise means to set value on something. They are very different things. Accede and concede. Accede means to agree or to concur. I acceded to my mother's request to marry John. Means I agreed to my mother's request to marry somebody. I acceded to my friend's request to drop her to the airport. So accede means to agree. Concede means to admit or to give in to or to accept defeat. So you may not like the way I say it, but you have to concede that I'm right. To concede means to accept defeat. So to concede to someone means you lose to someone. So to give in to something. So after a lot of resistance, she conceded that her venture was a big flop. So to concede means to admit defeat. To accede means to agree. Adapt, adapt, and adopt. These are very confusing words. So adapt means to adapt to change, usually to a changing situation, in accordance with the need or situation. A chameleon changes its colors to adapt to its surroundings in order to camouflage itself from its enemies. So when you think of adapt, think of how a chameleon adapts. Or think about evolution, how different creatures had to adapt to changing requirements. Like for example, we know the giraffe adapted itself, by developing a long neck so it could reach up to the top and eat more leaves. Otherwise it would have become extinct. So different animals adapt themselves in different way. So like when you work in a particular office and then you go to another office, you join a new company, you have to adapt yourself to the office culture, which might be different from your previous organization. Adapt means to be skillful or competent at something. Rachel is adept at sewing and cooking. So adept means competent, knowledgeable, skillful. So adopt is to legally acquire custody of a child or a pet or something similar and become parent's guardian of that person or creature. To adopt means to take responsibility for, legally. So you can adopt a puppy from the streets, or you can adopt a child from an orphanage. So Mary adopted an orphan girl from the foster care. So adapt means to adjust, to evolve. Adapt means skillful, knowledgeable. Adopt means to adopt an orphan child. So these are three different things, and you better be very careful when you come across these terminologies. Antics and antique. So antics are absurd acts or postures. The children laughed at the clown's antics. So the children, the clown does all these funny things, those are antics. So the children laughed at the clown's antics. So I've seen a lot of people make this mistake. So when they come across these words in GRE or GMAT, they come across antique and they somehow think, oh, it refers to antique furniture or antique jewelry. Whereas antics refers to, funny, absurd things that people do. Antique is something very old, often very valuable. So antique means something that's come down from a long time. So original antique platinum jewelry is very hard to find and expensive too. So antique with the QE, it means very old, and antics means absurd acts. Assure, ensure, and insure. So these are again common words which people get confused about. Assure means to guarantee. The politician assured the masses that he would provide them enough drinking water in the summer. To assure means to guarantee. Ensure means to verify and make sure by double checking. My mom ensured that the children always ate nutritious food. To ensure means to double check and verify. Insure means to provide insurance. It is wise to insure your health, property and cars in places where the crime rate is high. So insure, very easy to remember. Think about insurance. To ensure means double check, verify. Assure means to guarantee. So when you use these terms while writing an essay or in analytical writing, be very sure about what you write. So don't talk about insure when you actually mean to say ensure. This is a common mistake that people make. So I ensured that, my answers were all correct. Many people say I insured, so that's wrong. Insure means it's like about insurance, like you buy insurance for your car, health insurance. These are different types of insurance. Aesthetic and aesthetic. Aesthetic is something artistic or beautiful or tasteful. Ascetic is one who abstains from pleasure and luxuries. So, aesthetic means something to do with a sense of beauty. Something artistic. Like the colorful painting added aesthetic appeal to the renovated living room. So we use paintings and flower vases and all these things to add aesthetic appeal. So aesthetic means artistic, remember. And ascetic is nothing to do with art. An ascetic is like a sage, a hermit, someone who has renounced the world, who abstains from, physical pleasures, who focuses on, something more subtle, like the cosmic truths. So ascetic is a noun, and aesthetic is like an adjective. So the ascetic with the long beard was a great enlightened master who granted boons to devotees. When you think of ascetic, think about like a hermit, a sage in the Himalayas, okay? And think about aesthetic, think of like a colorful painting. Artistic, okay? See, they're very different words. One is a noun and the other is an adjective. Allude and elude. So, to allude is to hint at something, to make a reference to something. Usually a cross-reference to something. May not be in a direct way, but when you refer to something, that's an allusion. So noun form of allude is allusion. Elude means to evade, to escape from something. So, example of how you use allude. He alluded to the big brown alley cat as Simba the Lion King. So there's this big brown cat. He alluded to it as Simba the Lion King because it looks like a lion. So that's an allusion. So you can allude to our former Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh, as a great economist. That's also an allusion. So, elude means to evade or escape from. As she stood in front of the large audience of brilliant scientists, she felt nervous and words eluded her. Means she went up on stage and became so nervous that she could not speak. The words eluded her. So she was not able to get the words to talk. You can also, it's usually used in the context of, words eluding someone or some emotions eluding someone. So if you're using a sentence with elude, it's like, something goes away without you being able to get it. It's like, that's how you use it usually. So the next pair of confusing words is allusion and illusion. So allusion is indirect reference. It's the same as what we used in the previous slide. Sheila's allusion to the Queen as a fat old wrinkled lady got her in serious trouble. So she alluded to the Queen as a fat old wrinkled lady. Illusion, a false idea, belief or conception, an unreal, deceptive or misleading appearance or image. So Henry lives under the illusion that his wife is faithful to him. So apparently Henry's wife is cheating on him, but he lives under the illusion that she's faithful to him. So he's being cheated. That's an illusion. So you see a lot of like optical illusions. So if you think about people who were stranded in the desert without water for a long time, due to the heat, they see mirages, like, they see water bodies in the sand. There is no water body, but they feel like there is one. They think there is, it looks like there is a lake or something. That's a mirage, that's an optical illusion. It's a kind of trickery. So when people are stranded in the desert for a long time, they see all kinds of illusions. They see bright canvases, they see all kinds of pictures, they see all kinds of things happening. Due to the heat, whatever, they have these illusions. So it's about somebody who's also, like, say, naive, who's stupid enough to believe something, you know, that can also be a context, like in Henry's case. Or we can say she lives under the illusion that she's going to score more than 700 out of 800 in GMAT. Means she's not competent enough, but she lives under the illusion that she's going to do it. So that's another way you could use it. Allusion and illusion are two different words. Affect and effect. Affect is the influence of something upon something or someone. Harsh winters can affect people's happiness and moods and cause sad season sickness. So when your neighbor is, like, you know, talking loudly on the phone, it affects your concentration. You can affect in a positive or negative way. So when she saw the love from the nurse, she was affected deeply. So it triggered a positive emotion in her. So you can affect someone positively or negatively. Effect is the result of something. So rainbows in the sky are the effect of rays of light passing through water droplets on a sunny day. Alcohol has bad effects on health. So the effect is the result of something. Affect is how you influence someone. Affect is a verb. Effect is a noun. Oral, oral and auric. So adjective oral relates to the ear or to hearing. Listening to an opera is an intense oral experience. Means it causes a lot of strain on the ears, and it's a kind of an intense oral experience. So it relates to hearing. Oral relates to the mouth or to speaking. The dentist performed oral surgery to treat her infected tooth. Oral surgery is the surgery of the mouth. Oral is an adjective that means of or relating to the aura supposedly surrounding a living creature. So oral means, so every creature has like an aura, you know. When you are a great spiritual seeker or in meditation or something, you can actually see people's auras, you know. So they say when somebody is speaking the truth, his aura is golden, and when he is jealous, it's green. When somebody is angry, there's an aura, an energy field around the person, which is red. So oral, remember, relates to aura. Oral is mouth, and oral is hearing. So think about, here actually it means to say auric. I'm sorry, there's a mistake here. So there's oral, oral, and this is auric. So the auric field, we talk about the auric field surrounding a living creature. So the auric field is supposedly green when a person is jealous and red when angry. Oral is hearing, oral is related to the mouth, and auric relates to the aura. Beneficial and beneficiary. So beneficial is something that helps people to improve their lives. A beneficiary is someone who gains or is helped by something. So it is beneficial to shower twice in hot summer days. Means it keeps all the bacteria away. It's beneficial to shower twice in hot summer days. Beneficiary is someone who gains or is helped by something. The rich man made the local orphanage the beneficiary of all his wealth at the time of his death. So the beneficiary is one who receives the benefits. So I was the beneficiary of my parents' assets. Or so when you write a will, you name somebody as the beneficiary who is going to receive all the property. So beneficial means useful, and beneficiary means one who receives the benefits. So the beneficiary is a noun, usually a person or a creature who receives something. And beneficial means it's a kind of an adjective which says it's useful. Beside and besides. Beside means next to. So she sat beside him means sat next to him. Besides means in addition to. So wars can cause great destruction of wealth besides lives of innocent people. So we all know that in a war, a lot of innocent people are killed. Besides, it causes great destruction of wealth. Means in addition to lives, wealth is also lost. Beside means next to. So he sat next to the very attractive girl in the green dress at the bar. So we could say he sat beside the very attractive girl. So beside means next to. Entomology and etymology. Entomology is the study of insects. You must be comfortable to handle insects and bugs if you want to get a degree in entomology. So entomology is all about bugs and insects. How they live, how they reproduce, what do they eat, how they can be used. It's all about insects. Entomology. Etymology is the study of the history of words and where they come from. Rita studied a lot of English words of French origin in her etymology class. So if you watch my video about the origin of words and the origin of phrases, that's all etymology. It's about how these words came to be. It's about the history and origin of words. That's etymology. Casual and causal. So, casual means relaxed, informal, indifferent, or unconcerned. Causal means acting as a cause, to be responsible for something. So let's take an example of casual. We all know what casual dressing means, or when you casually scribble something. It means you don't take it seriously. It's like when you're indifferent, relaxed, informal. He offended the interview panel by wearing casual clothes, jeans and a t-shirt to the important interview. So we all know you can't dress casually to an interview. You have to wear formal clothes, or at least business casual. So, causal. The virus was causal in his diarrhea and ill health. So it means the diarrhea and ill health, the diarrhea was caused by the virus. That's what it means. So instead of saying the earthquake was caused by this, we say something was causal in the earthquake. That's what it means. The virus was causal in his diarrhea. So the virus was the cause. That's what it means. So remember, there's a very subtle spelling spelling difference. So casual is C-A-S-U-A-L, and just one switch here, C-A-U-S-A-L, is causal. So when you come across causal, remember it's different from casual. So you have to be very careful about these words which are similar in spellings. Collusion and collusion. A collision is to crash into something. There was a collision between an airplane and a truck at the airport. A collision between two trucks. Collision between two people. Collision between two objects. So that's a collision, like head-on collision. Collusion is not a very common word, but a collusion is a secret or illegal cooperation. So there was a collusion between the corrupt politicians and the mafia in the riots that happened. So what it means is the politicians, the corrupt politicians and the mafia goons, they colluded. They had this secret arrangement and they caused the riots. So collusion, think about like a secret agreement. Complaint and compliant. Complaint is an expression of dissatisfaction or unhappiness. There have been many complaints about the arrogant new receptionist at the office. A complaint, we all know what it is, it's a very common word. But just one small spelling change. So we say IANT, compliant, means to be willing or to adhere to some set of rules. So, especially we talk about like FDA compliance, ISO compliance in companies. So chemical companies must take care to be compliant with environmental laws. So if there's a company and there's all this smoke going out of the chimney, we have to take care, we adhere to the environmental laws so that we don't pollute the environment. So when you talk about compliant, think about compliance, such as FDA compliance, ISO compliance, environmental compliance, things like that. So watch out for the subtle spelling difference. So when you come across compliant, don't mistake it to be complaint. Compliant is very different. Okay, just watch out for this. Adverse and averse. Both words are adjectives that imply something unpleasant of some kind of opposition. Adverse, undesirable, something that acts against one's interest or well-being. The harsh winter had an adverse effect on her health and happiness. So when somebody is talking loudly on the phone, it has an adverse effect on your performance and your concentration. Means it affects you negatively. That is adverse. Averse, having feelings of hatred or repugnance towards something. The newlywed employee is averse to working overtime. So he's newlywed. Come on, he wants to be with his wife and go out on romantic trips, whatever. He doesn't want to work overtime, so he's averse to working overtime. So they're kind of similar, but there's a subtle difference. Adverse means something which affects you negatively. Averse means when you hate something, when you don't want to do something. So I'm averse to spending too much money on extravagant wedding celebrations. I'm averse means I'm opposed to it. So, complement and complement. So, this is again a commonly confused term. A compliment with an I is if someone says something nice about you or to you, then they're complimenting you. In other words, they're giving you a compliment. So a compliment can also be used as a verb and also as a noun. When you give somebody a compliment, you're complimenting them. And both the times we use the I, okay, compliment. I complimented my mom on her delicious cooking. I gave my mom a compliment on her delicious cooking. So in both these cases, here we use the verb and here we use a noun. Both are compliment with an I, okay? And there's a compliment with an E, complement. It's still pronounced the same. Is when two things go well together or complete each other. Used often in food, art and in fashion to describe matching styles or items. So something goes well with something else, so they complement each other. My blue tie complements my white shirt. So this white shirt and a blue tie, they get along very well each other. They go well along with each other. That's complement with an E. So my blue tie and white shirt go well together. That's a complement. So when you come across the complement with an E, remember it's about two things usually which go well with each other, which match each other. That's a complement. So the husband is like, very outdoor person. He takes care of all the outdoor things. And the wife is a very good homemaker. She takes care of all the things at the home, inside the house. So they complement each other, meaning these are all things that need to be done. He takes care of one aspect, she takes care of the other aspect, and they get along really well. They complement each other. They can also complement each other, meaning the husband can tell the wife, hey, you look beautiful. That's a compliment. And the wife can compliment the husband saying, hey, I like your new tie. That's a compliment. But to complement means with an E, complement means to go well together, to match with each other. Complement and supplement. So complement means to make a good combination. So this is the same that we looked at in the previous slide. And supplement means to add to. The graduate student supplements her income by tutoring high school kids. So she makes a small amount of money, she supplements it, earns more money by tutoring high school kids. So you can supplement your income by coaching GMAT students. So supplement means to add to. Confidant and confident. A confidant, someone to whom private matters are confided. So someone whom you can confide in is a confidant. Her mother is also her confidant. Means whatever problem she has, her secrets, she confides in her mother. So mother is also her confidant. Confident, to be sure of oneself, having or marked by confidence or assurance. Confident. She was confident to face the interview panel. She was confident she would do very well in the GMAT exam. Confidence means self-assurance. And confidant means someone who can confide secrets in. So there's just a subtle spelling difference. Confident with an E is a very commonly used word. But confidant means someone whom you can confide in. Conscientious and conscious. Conscientious person is one who is very careful about work, like meticulous. Conscious means to be aware of. The new secretary is conscientious about all the minor details in her work. Conscientious means to be very careful, detail-oriented. That's conscientious. Conscious means to be aware of. She was conscious during the leg surgery as she had been administered local anesthesia. Conscious means aware, to be awake and aware of what's going on. It's like conscious, and the opposite of which is unconscious, like maybe in a coma. So, during her leg surgery, she was fully conscious, awake and aware of what was going on to her leg, the surgery. Okay, that's conscious, means to be aware. Means, you can also say, she was conscious of the big black guy following her from the past couple of miles. So she was conscious somebody is following her. And because of that, she was walking consciously. Means she was walking carefully, means she was aware of what's going on, as opposed to being taken unaware. Conscientious means detail-oriented and meticulous. So they are two very different terms. And it's very useful for you to know the meanings and the difference. Brooch and brooch. So they're both pronounced pretty much the same. A brooch is a verb, means to open up, bring up a topic of conversation. So, a brooch can be also to open up something, like you broach the lid of a bottle. So, you can broach a barrel of wine. So, figuratively, not literally but figuratively, one might broach a subject in a conversation. I must broach the subject of his divorce in a delicate manner. So to broach means to bring up something, usually in a conversation. Brooch. So originally a brooch was used as a safety pin to fasten clothing together. Nowadays it's just a decorative item on one's clothes worn at the chest, usually. A brooch. Her brooch complemented her new blue dress. So it's something you wear on the clothes. So broach is to bring up something in a conversation, and usually, or it's also to open something, and brooch is a decorative item. Continual and continuous. Continual is constantly or frequently occurring. Rachel's continual phone calls to her new boyfriend ticked him off, and he eventually began to ignore her. Continual means happening frequently, again and again and again, continual, constantly happening, you know. Continuous means happening without a break. So even if somebody is calling you once a day or once every 2 days, it's still continual. But it cannot be continuous, because continuous means without a break. So you get the difference? So this is like happening too frequently, but this is happening like continuously, smoothly, okay? The continuous barking of the dog that night alerted the owners, and they spotted a thief. Or you can say a sine wave or cos wave in trigonometry is like a continuous wave. So, continual and continuous, there's a subtle difference between the two. Credible and credulous. So, credible is something that can be believed. So, credulous, it refers to as an adjective for a simpleton, a fool, a naive person, one who easily believes what he's told. So, credible. So, the king considered the priest's testimony credible in the case of the murder of the queen. So, usually when you think about credible, think about a credible witness. So, when a witness goes to court, they question the credibility of the witness. So, does this witness have a history of lying? Has this person been previously convicted? Does he have any ulterior motives? Is he a criminal? How credible is he? People swear in front of the judge, and they lie a lot of times. How credible is the witness? So that's something that comes into picture. So we all heard of this case. Recently there was this eve-teasing case in India, Jasleen Kaur and Sarvajit Singh. So there was a credible witness who came forward and stood up for the guy. If it had been another teenage boy or teenage girl, somebody who came forward, they would question the credibility of the witness. But this man seemed credible. So when you think about credible, think about like a credible witness. Means how trustworthy is this person? That's what credibility is all about. Credulous. So the village simpleton was credulous enough to believe the gangster. Credulous means stupid. So naive, who can believe anything, without using better judgment. So if somebody comes and says, hey, you know what, I think it's unsafe for you to keep your jewels in the bank. You should deposit them with me in my house. Only if you're credulous, you would believe that person, right? So credulous means stupid. The village simpleton was credulous enough to believe the gangster. Credulous means one who easily believes everything, who's stupid. And credible means one who can be trusted. Deny and refuse. Deny is used to say something that is not true. So, to say something is false, that to deny something. Deborah denied rumors of her engagement to Alex. So people keep asking Deborah, hey, are you engaged to Alex? I heard you're engaged. It's like, no, I'm not. So she denied it. Suppose the teacher asks you in the class, did you steal the pencil? And you say, no, I didn't. So you deny the accusation. So you say something is not true. That's a denial. So the noun form of deny is denial. D-E-N-I-A-L. Refuse is to indicate unwillingness to accept or grant. The immigration officer refused to grant her a visa. Refuse means I'm not giving you. That's what it means. Deny means no, that's not true. So that's deny. So the difference between deny and refuse, I hope you understand that. Desert and desert. So a desert is an area often covered with sand or rocks where there is very little rain and not many plants. So we all know about the Sahara Desert, the Thar Desert. How do you use it in a sentence? They were lost in the Sahara Desert for 4 days. The camel is the ship of the desert. That's like the noun form of desert. It can also be used as a verb. To desert someone means to leave them alone and run away, like to leave them high and dry. So her boyfriend deserted her in the park and ran after the dog. So the dog was escaping. Imagine the boyfriend deserted his girlfriend and he ran behind the dog.